In an emotional moment that touched millions, Tasha Cobbs Leonard couldn't hold back her tears. At 44, she finally opened up about something deeply personal, and what she confirmed had everyone feeling the weight of her words. At 44, Tasha Cobbs Leonard, the powerhouse voice that redefined gospel worship, finally broke her silence. For years she had endured the whispers, the speculation, the rumors about her marriage that spread through pews and timelines alike. But this time she wasn't holding back. When she finally spoke, her words hit like a tidal wave, raw, unfiltered, and breathtakingly honest. And no, this wasn't some scandalous confession or headline-grabbing drama. What she shared was far more profound. It was the truth behind the woman the world thought they already knew. For so long, Tasha had stood as a symbol of faith, resilience, and unshakable worship, her voice lifting millions while her private life stayed locked behind closed doors. But when she finally opened her heart, the entire gospel world stopped to listen, and what she revealed didn't just change how people saw her. It reminded everyone that even the strongest voices sometimes sing through pain, and even the most anointed hearts have stories they've been too afraid to tell. Her anthems, "Break Every Chain" and "You Know My Name," became lifelines for millions, echoing through churches, homes, and hearts that needed healing. On stage, Tasha Cobbs Leonard shined like a force of divine strength, powerful, radiant, and full of purpose. But behind those bright lights, a quiet storm was gathering, one she carried alone for years, hidden behind her worship and her smile. This is where it all began. Tasha's love story with Kenneth Leonard felt like something heaven itself orchestrated. It started with music but grew into ministry. At the time, Tasha was ascending fast, her voice shaking nations, her songs breaking barriers, her faith inspiring souls around the world. Kenneth, a gifted producer with an unshakable devotion to God, seemed to match her rhythm in every way. Their bond wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual, the kind of connection that felt predestined. Together they looked unstoppable, two hearts united by faith, talent, and purpose. But as the spotlight grew brighter, the shadows behind it began to move, and what no one saw coming was how that same love story would be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. From late-night studio sessions to whispered prayers between takes, their connection felt like destiny. Two hearts writing the same song before they even knew it. Everyone who saw them together called it a kingdom encounter, a meeting orchestrated by God Himself. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, a love rooted in faith and purpose. Tasha often said Kenneth made her feel safe, and that kind of safety was rare for her. With him, she didn't have to be Tasha Cobbs Leonard, the gospel powerhouse with platinum songs and global stages. She could just be Tasha, vulnerable, hopeful, human. When they finally said, "I do" in 2017, it wasn't just a wedding, it was a celebration that felt like heaven was watching. The gospel world rejoiced. Fans called it divine alignment. But behind the beautiful photos and radiant smiles, no one could have guessed that the same love story destined to inspire millions would soon be tested in ways no one saw coming. Their wedding photos lit up the internet, two radiant souls standing side by side, glowing with love and purpose. To many, it wasn't just a ceremony, it was a divine union. Tasha and Kenneth Leonard weren't just husband and wife, they were partners in ministry, a living example of faith, love, and destiny intertwined. People saw them as unshakable, the couple that prayed together, worshiped together, and stood as proof that God still writes love stories. But here's the truth no one saw coming. That picture-perfect image was only the surface. Behind the smiles and worship songs, something quiet began to shift. It didn't happen overnight. It crept in, slowly, silently. The laughter faded, the warmth dimmed, and the closeness that once defined them began to blur. As months turned into years, fans noticed what the couple never said out loud: fewer photos, fewer posts, fewer glimpses of the love they once shared so openly. People tried to brush it off. Maybe they were just busy, maybe it was ministry life, but deep down everyone could feel it. Something had changed. Social internet started to hum with inquiries. Are they all right? Is there a problem? Tasha, however, never responded. She continued to speak quietly while grinning and expressing her gratitude for her blessings. She later disclosed that the silence was actually survival. Even though at first it appeared to be tranquility, it becomes intriguing at this point. She said that she wasn't silent because everything was good. Her inability to communicate without crying was the reason. She was simultaneously attempting to safeguard her ministry, her marriage, and her reputation. However, she was gradually losing herself in the process. The realization that silence was no longer strong caused Destiny's path to take an unforeseen turn. It had turned into a jail. Tasha eventually talked about the true nature of those years. She acknowledged that she could no longer bear the burden of being a flawless woman of God. She claimed that she frequently had the impression that she was leading two lives, one in public and one in private, Although she appeared to be a self-assured worship leader, she was actually engaged in a war for which she lacked the necessary vocabulary. The demands of celebrity, the obligations of ministry, and the battle to maintain her marriage all proved too much for her. Furthermore, the fact that she placed no blame on anyone sets this story apart. She made no justifications or accusations against her spouse. Rather, she acknowledged that she was also a human. She claimed to feel caught between her suffering and the church's expectations. She was merely a woman attempting to make ends meet, but people wanted her to be a representation of religion. She later claimed that her quiet did not indicate that she was at peace. Fear was the cause, worry of being judged, fear of being let down, and concern that if people realized what she was truly going through, they would lose faith. Here's the startling bit though. Tasha acknowledged that she was being broken by the same picture of perfection she was attempting to preserve. She claimed that although she cried more than ever before, an inner voice whispered to her, "You can't. People expect you to be strong." As the years passed, the weight of that internal struggle increased. As she led people in worship and smiled on stage, she bore the burden of her renown, her faith, and her waning strength. Although her admirers believed she was unbreakable, they were unaware of her internal fragility. Tasha once remarked, "People think worship leaders have it all together, but sometimes we are the ones most in need of healing." She also mentioned that there came a moment when the quiet outweighed any disagreement. Even though she and Kenneth shared a home, their emotions would feel so far apart as the days went by. That kind of silence can be so oppressive you won't believe it. It's the type where you smile in public but return home to a chilly, impersonal environment. She acknowledged that there were moments after church when she would sit by herself and wonder if the audience members applauding her on stage understood how devastated she felt on the inside. Singing about breaking chains, the woman was now stuck in her own. Let me tell you, everyone was taken aback by this particular aspect of her narrative. She wasn't upset. She didn't harbor resentment. She was simply worn out. "I'm sick of acting. I'm worn out from performing, weary of bearing the burden of expectations that no human being can sustain indefinitely." She explained it like this. She claimed that she felt as full as a glass. Everything would flow over with only one more drop of pressure, and that's precisely what took place. Tasha came home one evening after a demanding day of ministering and knew she could no longer continue in that manner. She claimed that for the first time she let herself cry and that her spirit felt crushed. A flow of tears that she had suppressed for years, not just a few. She told God in prayer that she could no longer pretend. This is the startling part though. She claimed that she didn't beg God to mend her marriage in her prayer. She requested that He fix her. She claimed that everything changed at that same instant. For the first time, she began praying as a broken woman and ceased praying as a public person. Nobody anticipated Tasha's choice the following day. Rather than retreating behind her hectic schedule, she took a break from a few assignments. "I need to breathe," she said. It becomes intriguing at this point. She started to notice things during that sabbatical that she had been ignoring for years. The emotional detachment, the distance, and the tiredness. It was more than marital issues. It involved two individuals who had been serving others for so long that they had forgotten how to serve one another. The fact that she didn't assign blame is what sets the story apart. According to her, they had both gradually slipped into survival mode and believed they were doing appropriately. Tasha acknowledged that she began to painfully doubt herself. Was she thriving as a worship leader but failing as a wife? Did she have anything left over for her home after giving so much to the world? She was plagued by such questions. She claimed that after completing a stirring worship performance, she would occasionally return backstage and feel totally depleted. After the acclaim, she dubbed it the silence, and her suffering was most audible at those silent times. The most absurd aspect was that even Kenneth, who had always been her pillar of support, was having difficulties. He wasn't against her. In the same storm, he was equally lost. He wanted to be strong for her, and she wanted to be strong for the spectators. However, strength without connection just makes things farther apart. Both of them had ran out of energy. Both were acting as though nothing was wrong. They were both reluctant to acknowledge the loneliness that came with leading a life that appeared flawless on the outside. When their silence almost ruined what they had created together, destiny took a surprising turn. Tasha claimed that she became aware of how far they had strayed one evening during a minor argument that wasn't particularly serious. Who was right or wrong no longer mattered. It concerned two individuals who were unsure of how to get in touch with one another. "How did we get here?" she asked herself in a whisper as she sat there in the silence, realizing that silence had the power to sabotage love more quickly than any quarrel ever could. Slowly, she began to open up. first to God, then to the outside world. She claimed that she started writing him letters in which she expressed all that she was unable to express aloud. Every uncertainty, every fear, and every recollection of the past. She also claimed that as she was writing, she started to sense a change within herself, a peculiar calm that came from being authentic rather than from acting. She came to see that answers aren't usually the first step toward healing. Honesty can sometimes be the first step. Here's the startling bit though. Social media users were creating their own narratives as Tasha was going through all of this. Like wildfire, rumors proliferate. She and Kenneth were already split up, according to some. She was concealing a secret scandal, according to others. However, she claimed that the reality was far more straightforward and agonizing. She was merely attempting to recover without revealing anything in public. And the fact that she once again chose stillness in the midst of all the chaos is what gives this story its force. To keep her peace, not to conceal this time. She found solace in that quiet. She turned inward rather than arguing online or defending herself. She claimed to have discovered a new way to pray. God helps me understand myself, not the other way around. Healing doesn't happen in one big miracle moment, Tasha once stated. It arrives in stealthy little stages that nobody notices. She and Kenneth ultimately had to face the truth after months of introspection and silence. Though it had been buried beneath fatigue and unsaid suffering, their love had never truly vanished. She was so honest about that section that you won't believe it. She claimed that on certain evenings, they were both too exhausted to even attempt to communicate. Just exhausted, not irate or resentful. And the most dangerous of all, she explained, was that type of fatigue. It wasn't noisy. There was no sound. This is how they started rebuilding, I tell you. It began with straightforward discussion, which Tasha described as one of the most difficult conversations she had ever had. She didn't want to continue acting as though nothing was wrong, she informed Kenneth. She confided in him that she was sick of appearing to be the ideal gospel marriage in public while privately disintegrating, and Kenneth listened rather than arguing or defending himself. That was the first glimmer of hope, she added. They were actually hearing each other for the first time in years. This is the startling part though. Prior to that conversation, Tasha acknowledged that she was on the verge of giving up. She claimed that she had intended to take a solo trip for a while in order to get away from everything just before she made the decision to open up. She was prepared to vanish for a while in order to find calm away from the commotion. However, fate took a surprising turn. That same day, a close friend called and joined her in prayer, telling her that serenity never comes from escaping suffering. Her decision was altered by that phone call. She decided to stay and defend her marriage rather than go. It becomes intriguing at this point. They didn't begin with romance or dates when she and Kenneth ultimately made the decision to start over. Truth was the first thing they did. Together, they attended counseling sessions with a licensed professional therapist in addition to a pastor. It was uncomfortable at first. It was embarrassing to sit in front of a stranger and discuss their personal struggles, but gradually those sessions opened doors they had both locked for years, Tasha added. She claimed that the counselor gave them a strong realization. They weren't damaged individuals, they were worn-out ones. Her description of the procedure is what distinguishes the story. They learned to talk, laugh, and pray again. Not as two flawless individuals, but as two wounded souls learning to start over, she said. Healing wasn't loud, dramatic, it was a whisper. You won't believe the most bizarre part. The same music that had previously caused them to drift apart started to bring them back together. One late-night studio session led them to record a little worship song for themselves, not for public release. And Tasha said she started crying when they sang it together. Tasha also revealed that she had carried guilt for a long time, feeling bad for struggling when she should have been strong and for doubting when she should have faith, but that, in counseling, she realized that faith doesn't mean pretending to be okay. She said it felt like God was sitting right there in the room, healing them one note at a time. It means trusting God even when you're not. That realization, she claimed, set her free. She finally realized that being vulnerable did not make her weak. Rather, it made her authentic. The startling thing is that, despite months of recovery, the outside world was unaware of what was truly going on. They saw her leading worship and smiling once more, and thought everything was fine. Although there were still times when she wanted to leave, she said that the truth was that healing is messy and requires patience, forgiveness, and a great deal of humility. There were also still arguments, doubts, and quiet moments, but this time, she claimed that the silence felt different. It was no longer icy but rather serene. After realizing that her suffering had a purpose, destiny took yet another unexpected turn. She started sharing small details of her journey with women in ministry, telling them not to hide behind strength and that God doesn't heal what we hide. Her words quickly spread throughout the gospel world, touching hearts all over the world. She recalled one of her most poignant moments. leading worship in front of her congregation after months of silence, and said she wanted to break the image of perfection that so many women felt compelled to maintain, because if she, a gospel icon, could struggle and still find grace, then maybe others could too. Her voice cracked as she sang, not because she was sad, but because, for the first time in a long time, she was singing from a healed heart. That moment wasn't just a performance, it was her rebirth. Over time, Tasha's candor started to change how people perceived her. She claimed to feel a shift inside herself, as if the chains she once sang about were finally breaking in her own life. You won't believe how profoundly her story started to impact people. Fans from all over the world began sharing how her confession gave them the courage to face their own hidden pain. She was no longer just the gospel powerhouse with the big voice. She had become a symbol of real faith, the kind that bleeds, breaks, and then rebuilds. One question, though, remained unanswered. What actually transpired during those years of silence that compelled her to speak up? Let me tell you, this is how it all came to light. Tasha disclosed that, at her lowest, she had reached a point where her marriage was in jeopardy. She claimed to have vivid memories of one night, which she now refers to as the breaking night, when she was sitting by herself in the dark after another exhausting day, holding her wedding ring and wondering if she could continue. The shocking part is that, rather than giving up, she heard a quiet voice in her heart say, "This story isn't over yet." From that night on, destiny took an unexpected turn. Tasha and Kenneth made a commitment to rebuild their marriage on new foundations, not of perfection, but of truth, and made small but significant changes, like praying together every day, not using phones during dinner, and having honest conversations, even when they were uncomfortable. That one sentence changed everything, she said, saying it felt like God himself had entered the room. The real transformation didn't happen when things got better, Tasha said, adding that she felt as though she had her best friend back for the first time in years, that the distance started to close, that the love that had been broken started to breathe again, and that the laughter that had been lost was back. What makes the story unique is that it's not about a perfect marriage that never had problems. Rather, it's about two imperfect people who refused to give up on each other. It happened when everything was still messy, and she learned to find beauty even in the chaos. She also realized that love isn't about being perfect, but about showing up even when it's difficult. The craziest thing, she said, was that after she made the decision to be authentic, peace started to follow me everywhere. The same people who had previously criticized her started to respect her strength, and even the rumors subsided because truth has a strength that lies cannot match. She started giving speeches at women's conferences, sharing her story and reminding people that it takes courage to heal. God doesn't always change your circumstances right away, she says. Occasionally, he transforms you in the midst of it. She then clarified that her confession was about much more than her marriage, despite the fact that many people believed it to be about that. She wanted to break free from the need to be flawless. Its purpose was to demonstrate that faith is not a show, it is a partnership. She continued, I realize I don't need to look perfect to prove that God is good. His goodness shows even in my weakness. Those words hit deep across the gospel world, reminding everyone that strength and struggle can live in the same heart. But now for the unexpected bit. Tasha did not assert that her marriage was suddenly flawless despite everything. According to her, they now deal with difficult days and miscommunications in a new way. There was laughing, more patience, more grace. They discovered that quiet has the power to either heal or break. And instead of choosing agony, they decided that stillness was serenity this time. When Tasha made the decision to openly share her experience, destiny took one last unexpected turn. She stated that she desired freedom above celebrity. She wanted to be a role model for people who believed that becoming a minister meant keeping their scars hidden. The message she conveyed went much beyond gospel music. Her narrative ended in a way you won't believe. Healing isn't about pretending everything's okay. It's about having the faith to face what isn't. She claimed that she discovered true happiness when she at last let go of the idea of perfection. Her marriage remained together despite its refinement. She wasn't weak by being silent. It was getting ready. Nor was her suffering a form of punishment. It had a purpose. God transforms pain into power. He doesn't waste it, she remarked. Tasha Cobbs Leonard then transformed her most personal struggle into her most impactful testimony. Her story served as a reminder to everyone that faith can restore love even when it seems broken. Grace can shine even when the spotlight is off of you. Furthermore, destiny may be guiding you back to your true place even if it takes an unexpected turn. Because the most beautiful stories aren't often the ones that appear flawless. They are the ones who manage to sing again after surviving the storm.